Okay. We're moving it to right after we discuss all this. We'll move and then we'll let the public, we'll talk about it as a board and then we'll have the public input. All right. Am I good? Are you sure? Okay. Gotta give me crap about this. All right, let's call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. This is quite a crowd. All right, Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Earps.
Here.
Trustee St. Germain.
Here.
Trustee Craig.
Here.
I did. Okay. Trustee Daniels.
Here.
Trustee Kepke.
Here.
All right, let's all rise for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All right, can I get a motion for approval of our agenda?
I'd like to make a change to the agenda if that's possible. I move that we approve the agenda, but move item 5, public comment, to after item 9, discussion items, so that the community can hear more about what we're considering and have input at that point in time.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion?
And a question, Madam Clerk, is there a reason why we couldn't make that a permanent adjustment to the agenda format?
You can absolutely do that if you'd like.
Great, I think I'd like to suggest we do that.
Okay.
All right,
On Brian's lead.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I heard Brian. Where's he?
Motion
Your
carried.
headphones.
Heard a little teeny voice like,
He's in this. I think he's coming out of the headphones there.
okay. Okay.
Can we turn the volume up on the microphones?
What?
Can we turn the volume up on you guys' microphones?
On these, I
No.
need to speak louder.
Yes, please.
Okay, speak louder.
Usually we're not told to speak louder, Chris and I, so
Yeah.
we'll do our best. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, approval of the minutes from our February 26th work session and regular meeting and our March 18th regular board meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'll move we approve minutes from February 26th and March 18th.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, next moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda as presented. I didn't have any questions.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. Next on to reports and recognition. And I would love to start this out with a rousing congratulations to Dr. Becca Kaczynski.
If you don't know, we now have a principal with a PhD.
Just fresh off the whatever. But we couldn't be prouder of you. That's wonderful. And this morning we were able to, Jesse and I and Dr. Garrett were up at the high school this morning to watch JJ Hernandez get the Hunger Heroes Award. $5,000 check to be used at the high school kitchen and stuff. It was really cool. It was a total surprise in front of the whole student body. and everybody. It was pretty cool. So congratulations to her as well. So we got some really cool things going on. From Orofino Junior Senior High School, I want to recognize Cheryl Jones as always. She's always super, super helpful. She's a rock star. She's helps plan graduation every year and looks at all the little details and make sure everything runs properly and gets everybody in supplies and all that, which is important. All that stuff. So congratulations to Cheryl. From Timberline, Mrs. Richardson and Mrs. Tribe for the video announcements, which are just, I love them. They are so cute. It's kind of one of my bright spots in my day. I'll open that up and look at the little kids doing the announcements. But yeah, that's cool. IDYCA broke ground on the new barracks up there, which that's pretty cool. And their academics are going extremely well up there. From nutrition, from Carmen's department, big thank you to Bob and Tam and Naden for donating the signs for the food pantry, which those are really, really, really cool. They definitely go above and beyond for feeding our kids. So, all right. Anybody else have any?
I was just gonna say, in Peck, the ladies, a little big Canyon Club treated all the kids,
to
to
Easter egg hunt,
500
yeah.
Easter eggs before spring break. So that was probably a fun day in Peck. And I think that was all of them.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there was one more.
Did I?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Do
I'll
you have
grab
that,
it.
Jesse?
Trying technology.
I was doing 5 things at one time this morning when I was doing this, so forgive me.
Becca was on there for a degree. Casey Dow
Oh,
got that one. Find it.
The two secretaries, Marcy Bonner and
Oh, there we go.
Tammy Schwartz.
and I did. I totally forgot about that, Denise. You can slap me around out in the parking lot later, okay?
That's okay, but they're pretty special to us.
Yes, they
Very
are.
important to what we do, so.
Absolutely. They're the secretaries and the attendance people and all those are the unsung heroes of every school. Because if you remember, if you think back to your days at elementary school, how much did the school secretary do for you when you had a boo-boo that needed a Band-Aid or whatever it was? They were there and they are awesome. So, all right. Okay, so have any committee reports?
Have none.
None?
Nope.
Policy?
No new policies other than the one we're discussing later during discussion.
Okay. Okay. Building reports. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
How's the testing going?
We haven't started yet.
Oh, okay.
We started
First
last
of May.
Okay.
and are trickling, seeing the trickles of our ELA stuff come in, and we do math tomorrow.
And this is early this year, or is it just, it is?
It's a little bit earlier, but it's allowing us to spread them out and have intentional testing time with targeted schedules for those blocks of time. And we've seen it be really beneficial. We have kids taking things really seriously.
Awesome.
We're excited.
Wow,
We'll see what happens.
good job.
Okay, is it, okay, similar setup across,
That time of the year, spring sprung. All right, anything else from the building reports? Moving on to programs now. Child nutrition, maintenance, anybody, technology?
so I took the time Thursday and toured Carmen's new space. And Roy, you did a great job. Where's Roy? Somewhere here still? Yeah, there he's hiding. It's really cool. And there was a gal there who was sharing a bereavement gift, an honorarium going forward for a significant sum of money towards the walk-in and the shelves. And I think that, the whole idea of saving money by buying in bulk is what we're doing in maintenance. And I think it's what we're going to be getting, moving towards with this new facility for food. And I hope to see those results come through budgetarily, but it's a beautiful space and well done to the team.
Ready. Anybody else?
I just Russell finally found a network supervisor. I feel like
Yeah,
I know, that's
true.
so
That was-
exciting.
So pretty exciting.
Has it
Hopefully-
started yet, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he did
Mhm.
start?
Yeah,
That
April
was last-
1st.
Oh,
Last month.
okay. Geez,
Seems-
this month is,
Not seen any great things yet. It just takes a little while.
but we will.
We will.
Yes, there is.
So where is that person housed? Are you all virtual?
This is the server room.
Good spot.
Yeah, actually kind of likes it there.
Okay.
So,
Sounds like a good IT person.
it's not unusual.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. We have a space, so a dedicated space for somewhat.
Not really.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of.
We have an additional space at our central office. We have a kind of a temporary whatever, jump in, jump out. So he's around quite a bit. So yeah, it's a shared space
For IT?
for our new one, but mostly he's
Everything's
Yeah.
good so far.
Yeah.
Good.
he's roving,
Learning?
learning.
All right. Anything else?
There wasn't, my link isn't live for transportation. Derek, do you have any updates?
Yeah,
Driving.
yeah, there wasn't anything from there. Maintenance, of course, Roy's knocking it out of the park like he does every.
And the nurse doesn't have a report, but I read something about that funding is, has not been renewed.
Yeah, that was in my report. Yes. So yes, we did not receive that grant for next year.
Do we have a plan?
We will move her over to student pupil support services and utilize that FTE from state funding. Yep. Which we were currently doing a portion of that anyway, because the grant does not cover the entirety of her salary and benefits.
So does that lose the healthcare component of that FTE?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. No, it fits in with the student support, pupil support service. Yep.
All right. So let's move on to our discussion items. The first one is the May board meeting location from Timberline School to IDYCA.
Yeah. I don't see, where'd Jim go? Mr. Hill.
He's here.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
So really, I think what he was, and you can fill in if you'd like to. Basically, that's where our graduates are asking for early graduation that
Oh.
we usually do. So he had requested if we could move that from Timberline to there. So
So we'll be doing the early graduation requests at that time, on that day.
You know, the intent is we'd like to have our squadron there and do a flag detail and show how important the board is to the academic side of the academy. And I think it was done in the past.
Mhm.
And to recognize those cadets who are getting their JSD diplomas, because at the actual graduation for the academy, that's the influence. They're the graduate of the academy. And it's a side thing, and I think it's important that we recognize that they are getting their diplomas.
Okay.
thank you.
So the day works the day of our
Yes.
regularly scheduled May board.
Make it work.
Okay. Okay. Because I know in the past we've done separate stuff, but it would be, yeah, that would,
Yeah, my intent
Be
was
great.
not to cause an additional day for the board and get plenty of notice, hopefully that everyone will be able
okay,
Appreciate that.
perfect. Okay. Any more discussion on that? All right, so moving on to the extracurricular eligibility policy. I know we have a lot of people here on that subject, so who wants to get the background on that?
Sure, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I gave you guys a summary of kind of where that came from way back to 2007, I think, as far back as we go. So that summary you have in your hands. The most recent changes happened in the last few years. So really the big change that happened, I think our most recent one that is causing the question, I believe, is the eligibility piece of it. As far as the grade checks, the duration or the periodic of the grade checks, and then how many we have 0Fs and how that looks as far as a quarter grade versus there's a lot of variables to that. And so the history of that is it comes down a lot to our teachers as well as how they're putting in grades and not trying to pull that back on them as well. Just saying that we need to have some consistent practices as well. And we're wanting to make sure our students are keeping their grades up. And from what I'm understanding, it's caused some issues in the community and with some of the students about being able to field some teams and those type of things. So back a little bit farther, it was, if you go back to 2007, I know there's a lot of work done on it. Well, it looks like it's been redone from 2007, 2010, 11, 15, and 16, and then 19 and 20, and then 23. So it's been reviewed and modified many, many times. And as things change, the requirements change from the state, the IHSA as well. So we look at that and just try to figure out the requirement. And so if you guys have questions on those, and I have some extra copies if you guys want to pass these out and pass these around, so you guys can kind of see the history of it as well. I don't know how many I have here, but you're going to pass those out if anybody's interested.
Sorry, Karen.
I can help with that if you want.
So
I don't mind.
prior to this change, we were doing the most recent, the prior change was going from every 2 weeks on eligibility, and then the opportunity to correct those deficiencies and then become eligible anytime during that 2 weeks. And I believe we went to 1 week,
Yeah.
and then ineligible for that week if they were not eligible. So that was probably the major difference between the prior one and the current one. It was adopted in December.
But didn't the caveat that we added or the flexibility for the school administrator around extraordinary circumstances, didn't that offer that additional buffer?
So that was the intent. Yes.
And it didn't work?
I don't know. Isn't that didn't work? No, I think that still is happening. I'm just, yeah. Yeah.
So
Do we know if all the teachers have been debriefed on this new policy? They have. Are they all on board with it, I guess? In that I hear it's a lot of because it's a new quarter beginning grades. There was talk about a 0 versus incomplete, how much that changes things. Because when we went to this, it was actually to try to help by making it a week instead of 2 weeks. It wasn't trying to punish the kids more. That's
Correct.
not what we were going for. But then it sounds like it's kind of bit us a little bit.
The biggest feedback we've gotten on it is that difficulty in the first 2 weeks of the quarter. And this is something that got seen a lot that fall sports have experienced forever because that's the start of the school year. That's when there are no grades.
Right.
When this policy went into place this way, it impacted the spring sports, and so it was a greater population of people that were impacted. And I do think that part is hard because when you are at the beginning of the quarter, there's one grade in there.
Sure.
It's not a real representation potentially of what the kid's capable of within that short period of time. So that is some feedback that I've heard. I also think that in the implementation with any new policy, every single entity that's impacted is going to take some time to make sure that everybody understands how this works and is effective. And my thought would be, it's like when looking at it from the teacher perspective, okay, if this is a week-to-week thing, what does this look like? When is your grading expected to be done? Making sure that we're adhering to the attendance policy for kids who are absent, they get a certain amount of days. If they're gone for an athletic event, making sure they get those times to make things up. So I think some of those logistical pieces could be instructed on better, like when I think about in my building and the ways I can support my teachers to help them be more successful. But I also, like I said, there's that limiting factor of the first 2 weeks when there's one grade and that's your whole
You
grade.
fail a quiz and you're out.
Yeah.
So did administration implement their flexibility, their ability to vary?
Yeah, especially since it went on to review for the board policy, I actually exercised my right and gave eligibility to all students for last week because we were going to discuss the policy and I didn't want it to limit them if we were going to make any changes. So I did exercise my right.
How about you, Jason?
Well, we had some errors, that like, let's say, so if you run a report, maybe errors isn't the correct term, but if you run a report, everybody who has an F shakes out, right? And so our athletic director went through that and we found some students who
Sorry, Russell.
Found some students who, like Becca said, maybe they were gone for an athletic event And so normally a teacher would grade that, put in an assignment, and the student would do the work, catch it, make it up, and it wouldn't be a big deal. The consequences are much more severe now. So our athletic director just recognized, okay, those two were athletes or baseball players, or whatever, track athletes. So they were gone for a school sponsored event. So they still have time to make it up. Same thing with one or two kids who had illness absences. They still get screened out if a teacher's put,
Zero.
their grades in. Yeah, it might be zeros or it could be whatever bad grade. It's exacerbated at the beginning of a quarter, of course, when you have no grades. But we were able to catch those, through that report and fix it.
And do you feel that with the flexibility that we granted or the right that we granted you as administrators, is it functioning properly?
It worked okay for us in our building.
I'd say the difference with my building is the number of spring sports that I have and the amount of students. So the legwork that comes along with some of that. My athletic director and I spent the good part of the first 2 days of the week managing specifically athletics, which is a challenge in the world that I'm in with my limited office resources and staff. So I don't know, to be totally transparent with you. I think, like I said, there are more pieces that if the policy stayed the way that it is, I would be doing some additional work on my end to make sure that for the first 2 weeks of the quarter, I'm really dialed in with my teachers and making sure that expectations are clear and grading policies are very clear and the communication is happening with everybody. So that's where I would leave it with the board, is that whatever you guys determine, I will do either work on my end to make sure that things are happening so that it's a lot smoother than it was this time.
Well, I think obviously we need to look at what our intention was
Yeah.
in changing the policy and what the actual impact that it has had on families and on students.
So
I
how
mean, at
many
the end of the
students-
day, that's what it kind of boils down to.
How many students did it affect at your?
For this last quarter, over 30.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So there was a significant number. We actually started pulling the list, and my athletic director and I divided it up and started looking at each individual kid and went through their attendance history, went through all their different stuff. We're communicating with coaches. So it was a lot. And we have 5 spring sports, I think, altogether. So there's a lot going on. And to give you context too, the other factor of this, we, in a week, because of how the spring season falls, could have between 6 and 8 games. So that student would miss all of those games and not just one. So that obviously is a greater impact when you're looking at like a JV season or, when they're only going to play so many games in a season. So is the magnitude of what they're experiencing in comparison with the maybe one failing grade for the beginning of the quarter? I don't know. That's something I would encourage the board to discuss and see what is the intent of the policy and how to follow through on it.
Yeah.
So.
And for us, that would have been 5 or 6 per week.
Okay.
And probably 3 to 4 were legit, should be ineligible because they'd earned bad grades,
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that was when we did all this, the intent was to make sure that those kids who aren't academically feasible and aren't doing the work, face the consequences of that. But we also didn't want to punish the kids who are doing the work and just one reason.
And we
or
were trying
another.
to shorten it up so it wasn't so long because that was part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. The time frame.
It sounds like by shortening it up, we caused
We did.
more of a problem.
Yeah.
Agree.
Apparently. Yeah. Sometimes you live and learn, huh?
Do we have input from the policy committee or the group about any recommendations?
Yeah. That's suggested changes to.
Yeah. So you mean currently?
Mhm.
So that we don't really have a policy committee at this point because we haven't been able to fill that back yet.
But what can we do to fix it?
So
The policy committee wasn't one.
no, but we haven't reached to that because this was just put on here this last week. So haven't had time to do that. I mean, we can easily refer back to the policy that we had prior, which is easy to read. It was adopted in 2020, I believe it was. And that goes back to that 2-week grade checks and then being able to, if you become eligible, if you're ineligible, I think it was a 2-week or 1. It was 2 weeks.
Yeah, we were checking every week. The main difference would be that students could become
Correct.
eligible
Yep. Right.
as soon as they were passing.
Okay. Instead of having to wait till the
And now they're
following-
out a week.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times in our
Yes.
school, and I'm sure Dr. Kaczynski would say the same thing, but kids would get screened out on Monday. If they had a game on Tuesday, they got their work done and they were eligible by Tuesday.
Gotcha.
And now they're out for a week.
So
So that's the main.
Yeah,
crux
That's
of
the
it.
main,
Yeah.
that's what's good. Yep.
So this
Yep, I was
sentence,
a
the
policy
probation
before.
will mean that
Sorry.
students can practice but may
Adoption
not
before.
play until the failing grade is brought up
Mhm.
to a passing grade.
That was one of the things.
So that allows that as soon as they have that passing grade, they're back in.
That's how the old policy.
Right,
was.
I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so that's the
Yes.
sentence
So
that
we're
is
missing
key.
big time.
And it
Yes.
didn't follow through here.
No.
Probation means the students can practice but may not play until the next assessment. So if we replace that sentence with the former sentence.
I think you might be in a different section than the eligibility section. Because if that practice not play is the ramifications of being ineligible, not necessarily how you become it.
I don't know, I wish I had them side by side. It would be easier than going back and forth.
So a lot of this before went back on the teachers. So what kind of ramification, if we say go back this before, what's it gonna do to the teachers?
And to be totally transparent with you, after this policy, a lot of the teachers came back and said, this is more work. This is harder. So
Okay, good to know. Yeah,
it's like
that's-
with anything that you put in place policy wise and when things.
Yeah.
And again, I own and want to work with my staff on what this looks like and how to do it well
Right.
and with fidelity and what the expectations would be. I think that that's a piece, but I also think that there's going to be challenges with either way. That's just
not gonna
the
make any
facts.
difference.
Like I don't know that it's perfect either way. I shared with you when we in November started talking about this. When I was running policy committee, I sent an email
wait.
to all the teachers and I said, "Do you have any feedback on these policies?" And it was mixed reviews. There was not like a lot of like, "Yes, for sure we need to change it," or "No, we need to do this." And a lot more of the comments were about returning from sports trips late. In
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
evening.
that's why
So
we
that was
adjusted the top.
I got the most feedback on those
On
with a
those.
few smattering pieces about grades. But and some were like, let's do more, let's do less. And it was kind of all over the place. So as policy committee, we were like, we
Where do we
have a
go
whole
with
lot
that?
of stuff. So that's kind of where that fell with and correspondence with teachers. And same thing similar happened, garnering some information and feedback from coaches. And we got some small smatterings
Yeah.
back there too. So
Yeah, and I think some of this stuff maybe could be taken care of with a conversation with a coach. As far as the kids are concerned, hey, they're Bobby, you're not doing. I'm not picking anybody named Bobby in the room, just. But hey, Bobby, look at this. You need to get your stuff in on time, and you need to do it.
yeah,
Okay.
And
and
that's
cleaning up some of the logistical pieces, like making sure that like if the kid is gone, that the attendance pieces are followed. That there's multiple days. Zeros don't go in the grade book until they've had their days, so there's a lot of. Again, that's where I stand on is whatever decision the board makes is going to just put us in a situation where we decide how we best support our staff and our students and our coaches. So
and I think that's good as long as we're following the IHSAA
Yeah, and
rules.
we were wondering why that too. We talked about that. I remember that because it is different than ISHA.
Yeah, so the rules are here, provided by input from back in November. And it states, if the student has 3 classes, must pass all 3. If the student has 4 classes, must pass at least 3. You hear me?
Mhm.
5 classes must pass 4. 6 classes must pass 5. 7 pass at least 5. 8 pass at least 6. So was there any thought when the group was working on this to incorporate this from the
IHSAA.
IHSAA rules?
yeah, and it's historically, and I think you can see that in probably the packet that Dr. Garrett gave you is that we have never been exactly what the IHSA, and I will give you context. I don't know that there's a school district in the state that's just IHSA. They all have their own pieces to it. So just kind of determining, because that if we would have gone back to IHSA strictly, it would have been going way back from what we were currently doing. Because we were currently doing 1 filling grade and grade checks
Right.
every week. So to go to that was a little bit
Too
different.
much flexibility.
Well, I'm
allowing a lot of failure.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean,
Too
allowing
much.
failure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Kids that might not be on track for graduation.
oh, okay.
So what I'm hearing is we can relax this quite a bit, still be in line with keeping kids successful and keeping them playing their sport if they so desire. as long as their grades are are good, but without putting the extra burden on everybody.
Well, including the coaches, because you
Including
look around,
coaches.
most of our coaches aren't teachers anymore. It's hard to find a teacher
Yeah.
coach. So your coaches are coming in from their other jobs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'd love more teacher coaches, but you just don't find it.
No.
So now you're asking a coach that's coming in from work to try to follow up on this, and teachers to try to get grades in.
Yeah, too much. Too much.
And were
I
they
think
failing more than one class?
Go ahead, Brian.
There
We
he
say
is.
another unintended consequence of this is the students that have good academics are suffering not being able to play or possibly forfeit games because you can't get a team together.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And then, I think the reality is, you have 2 semesters in a year, kids have time to make certain grades up when they do run across the class that they're struggling in. Is a 2-week window, is that sufficient to get a kid up to speed? I'm all about the academics over sports. I really, really am. And I think most parents are. But at the same time, I feel for kids that are doing everything right, but they're suffering from what we're trying to do.
I don't think that was our intent. I think
No, I don't think it was
we tried
either.
to simplify it and shorten it up for everyone, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So we
Hey,
can fix it.
There's nothing wrong with trying and failing and coming back and looking at it again.
Hey, at least we did at the beginning of the season, not during districts and states. So
Yeah. So yeah. Well,
So the wording that, if you guys want to hear what it said before, it's pretty short as well. So it says students shall meet any applicable IHSA requirements for eligibility. Students grades 7 through 12 must be passing all classes, no failing grades. Grade checks will be a minimum of every 2 weeks. Students will become eligible only after evidence of passing all classes is presented to the athletic director or principal. It says a minimum of every 2 weeks. That's where I was getting that. So
and that wouldn't be a stretch.
No,
That'd be fine.
we were doing it weekly to Brian's point so that it wouldn't get in a
Mhm.
big hole and you couldn't get them caught up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we would just run weekly.
Right.
But the 2 weeks gave us a little bit of flexibility.
Yep.
Well, and the kid that gets themselves in that big of a hole, then sometimes there's a natural consequence to it.
Additional
And
support's needed.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's something going on. Something going on.
What is the date of the language that you're reading, Michael?
it was, let me look here, 1/13/2020.
Oh, okay.
yeah, mine reads a little different too.
Yeah.
Mine does too.
Yeah.
Students
one
in
that-
grade
yep,
9
that was
through
a
12
different-
must
yep.
pass 6 classes in a 7-period.
Yeah,
class.
that's the one prior to that even. So yeah, that date, 1/13/2020, I can send this to you so you have the exact.
That's the second one. I know mine, yeah, that's ours.
Yeah.
It reads different than what you're reading.
Yep. Yeah, I apologize. I pulled that from a different document evidently. So this is the one from 1/13/2020
Is here.
is this the one
Oh,
I'm
so
looking at?
this is wrong.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Yes. Yep. That was the one prior, I believe.
Okay. So, well, then no, it's even different from the 9/16/2019.
Yeah. Let me just send it to you so you guys will have
This
it
is the
all
one
emailed.
where I read the probation will mean the student can practice, but they may not play until the failing grade is brought up to a passing grade. I think that's fair.
And then the next.
The assessment will be weekly and the determination will be made on Monday of each week. Student grades will be evaluated each assessment period. Junior high student is responsible for going to teacher on a weekly basis with a form to ascertain his or her eligibility. The form must be turned into the school office by the student. So it gives the student ownership of their own potential.
So you guys remember back in
This is
19?
9/16/2019.
Why would we have went from that one
Since
to?
then, we went to Skyward just running a report.
Mhm.
Teachers
Okay,
know,
so that,
students are told by the athletic director.
so
They
that,
still have the onus to get their grades up, but
Right.
we used to have blue forms that you literally have to walk around.
that's what it sounds like, yeah. So the form is no longer, but is that probationary language what we're looking for? It sounds to me like
And that's still what we're doing. The students get to go to practice when they're ineligible. They don't leave or travel.
So what, are they, is it like one class they're failing or is it several?
The new policy, one, they're out.
Yeah.
The old policy, you could have one fail.
Yeah, so,
What is the norm we're seeing or?
yeah, like,
Yeah, I mean, of those 30, I had maybe 3 that had more than one class.
Yeah, so
So
that's
most of them, it was all one class.
So we took these two paragraphs and turned it into a sentence and one paragraph.
because the one on 2019 must pass 6 out of
Right.
7
They all would
classes.
be-
That's the
So-
IHSA standards, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I think sometimes, like if you're struggling in one class, it may take
Yep.
So
a few weeks to get your grade
In-
up in there.
in the policy tracker, is the first column A the old one?
I don't believe so.
It would have just been, how I ran the policy tracker is based the version just prior to that one. So whatever was the form we currently had posted on the website would be in there at the time of the revision. So that's the policy
So that would
tracker.
be
Which one
A.
is it?
Yeah, A
And
is like.
then B was what
it
we were
doesn't
gonna
keep multiple
approve.
Years, yeah.
Right.
You don't see it?
Do you want to share it?
Yeah.
So A was the one that did not have the administrator
And
and
then IR
athletic director
1643.
flexibility or right to override.
That was in there in our old policy.
Can do that.
Is that what
No,
you're
because we had to
That'll
add it in Timberline. I remember that
Because they
conversation.
pulled it
That
out.
was the draft that we were writing.
Yeah.
Didn't have the administrative
Right.
flexibility.
Right.
So I wrote that draft on the fly
Yep.
digitally.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't find the printer.
Okay.
CES.
So really our task is, do we believe we need to modify this language to meet the needs of the student population that Brian mentioned, which is the students that are doing well,
Not being able to
but
play because
are
they're not.
not able to
The can't
participate
CES
because
Canon.
their peers are not doing well.
But like I said, it sounds like it's a very small percentage if we just go back to one failing class. Sounds like the 3 are still gonna need to do some serious work.
Right.
The other 27 are gonna,
Be okay.
Went somewhere.
so this one you just sent us, this one is before this or after this one? One that he just emailed us.
That was the one, that's the one that goes in between the top one. Yeah, it should go right there.
Okay.
2020. Yep. That should be the one right prior to
Students shall
this.
meet.
Yep. Printed some copies. Hopefully you guys will get it.
2 weeks, but no failing classes.
If we went back to no failing classes, so if you have an F, you don't play if you have an F. And that's what we were doing. I liked it because students were working hard to get their grades up if they fell in a hole. If we had something like that with the 2 week at the beginning of the grading period, or 2 week, if you fall into that 2 weeks, you get a little bit of extra time to compensate for the, grading practices of here's the first assignment, whatever. That probably would solve the issue for all but those students who really, were failing.
Can you explain that grading period more to me?
Well, right
Since
now.
I don't have a kid in school
Yeah,
anymore.
we're just running that report on a quarter basis. So, at the beginning of the quarter, it starts over.
Mhm.
Everybody's at 100% at the first assignment, you don't turn it in, you're now at 0%,
Okay.
Could you do it by semester to where the previous quarter rolls in with it?
We could, that's a double-edged sword. It goes
Okay.
both ways.
Mhm.
You dug it deep, if you have a,
Can't get out of a hole you got in.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess with this last one that you just emailed us, what's wrong with it? Because it says students shall meet any applicable IHSA requirements for eligibility. Obviously, students grade 7 through 12 must be passing all classes, no failing grades, but grade checks will be a minimum of every 2 weeks. Students will become eligible only after evidence of passing all classes and present it to the athletic director / principal.
So they wouldn't need to
Yeah, so
present
why did
because of
we-
Skyward, right?
Well, they still do because they'll get screened out and then they'll have to do their work and either, and we put the onus back on the student to okay, you have to get your grades up and then show. And yes, we can look it up and verify, but they're still
So-
responsible for it.
So why did the policy committee recommend the change?
Well, I was on the policy committee, and the one thing that stuck out to me about it is because of what it was putting on the teachers. These students could come every day, all day, and with your grades there so they could play that day. So, I mean, it wasn't like a one-time deal. Pull it up once a week. The teachers out all day, every day throughout the week was trying to get the grades in so that child could play that sport that night. So,
I also think that it was an adoption to see how it played out, to make this change and see if the change was gonna make anything better. And I think that, to be totally transparent, I don't know that everybody was uniform, like, yeah, we should go this direction, but it was more like, well, if we're gonna try something that's a little bit more stringent, this is what this would look like. And I think what we're seeing right now is it didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's, like you guys said, is a good opportunity to be reflective about the policies and the practices, is saying like, okay, we tried this, but it doesn't meet the mission that we had hoped for our kids.
And for the teachers, it sounds like it's not saving
No,
their work.
no, they don't, it's not like they're like, oh yeah, we're fighting the good fight for this. They're kind of more like, oh, this feels like a lot too, so.
Yeah.
Jason, can I ask a question again? But why are we giving placeholders as a 0 to the kids and telling them they're failing if it's an inexcused absence where they're gonna make up? Why not placeholder with 100? Why not?
That's
Or
came up
a
with-
missing.
okay, hang on a minute here.
Yeah.
There will be time for public discussion. That's why we want to do this first, and then you guys can ask them questions. Because we figured that'd be better and easier, so you guys would have your say-so too. So if we don't, we're gonna be here till midnight. So.
And there's packed people here not for sports.
Yeah.
Got Cavendish.
Right here.
So we dropped it to 6th grade. We took away the extra week.
And remove the ability to make the change if they got their grades in. So they were out for the full week.
So
That was why it was dropped to the week standard. So they would be out 4 days, basically.
students in the current, students will become eligible if their quarter grade is passing at the next weekly grade check. Previous, student will become eligible only after evidence of passing all classes is presented to the athletic director or principal. So if it happened before the next weekly grade check, they were allowed to play.
Period.
Okay.
That's pretty straightforward.
So
It
why
is.
don't we put that sentence,
Yeah.
right? So from the administrative standpoint, do you like the 2-week window?
For the start of the
For
course.
the, and for the student, it just said grade checks will be at a minimum of every 2 weeks.
I'm fine with the language of minimum. We'll continue, if it stays that way, we'll continue to do it weekly. Because our kids need more. We have a lot of kids that need more
Sure.
reminders. And
You're not going to put them off the team. You're just going to try to keep.
Yeah, and that's
Do-
I think that's a good thing to be at
Do-
the discretion of the administrators.
Do we like that we dropped it to 6, to include 6th grade?
That's probably a Timberline thing.
I'm just asking, just
Yeah,
asking.
we have.
Okay, so, students, okay, so grade, so passing all classes, no failing grades. So then grade checks, we're gonna take out of this one, grade checks will be a minimum of every 2 weeks. Students will become eligible only after evidence of passing all classes as presented to the athletic director and principal/principal. Eligibility may be granted by the school administrator and athletic director for extraordinary circumstances. All such circumstances must be reviewed by the administration prior to the day of the athletic event. How's that feel? Okay, we don't make a motion now. We do that in an
No,
action item
yeah,
because we
so-
want to get your input next.
Yeah. Well, so let's move
You like
on.
that?
Yeah, let's move on and then we'll circle back to that after.
Yep.
We'll cover the last two little itty bitty things and then we'll go from there. Okay, so, the law conference, 22nd, 23rd, I am not going to be able to go. So I don't know.
I think you were the only one that was going to be able. 'cause
Yeah,
the
I
rest of
can't.
us-
I've subpoenaed in court.
That's pretty important.
Yeah. They appreciate that.
And then
Yeah. So the Regional Institute in Moscow.
I've registered and paid. Did that myself.
What date was that one?
The first discussion.
The Moscow one?
It's on my
The May
other work life calendar, so it's in May.
Okay. I'll circle back on that one.
It was in the newsletter. It came out in the newsletter 2 newsletters ago. It was one of those. Oh, that looks cool.
Okay, cool.
It's close. $295.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Public comment. Do we have this? Do you know who's?
I don't. Jesse, that's May 22nd. That's what
Okay,
that is.
thanks.
Yeah, sorry. I do not have them listed. That was you.
Okay, Mr. Tunnable, are you here?
Well, he's
Mr.
not.
Tom.
Christina?
But he emailed stuff, so can I speak?
Yes, you
Yes,
can.
absolutely.
I need to go first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna talk fast. I timed myself.
Do you have a timer?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I-
So just for clarification purposes, so everybody knows per our policy, you have 3 minutes.
3
So
minutes.
that's
2
just
seconds under if I do it fast.
Right on.
We'll fudge a little.
Tell me when to go.
No.
Okay. As a former classroom teacher and current teachers of teachers, I know that not all students learn the content the first time you teach them. You often have to go back and reteach or come at the content a different way. However, your current weekly grade check policy makes it very hard for teachers and student athletes to work through the entire learning process before a punishment is given for the grades. Throughout each quarter, weekly grades fluctuate too much for them to be accurate reflection of learning or the teaching. 2 examples from my own household. For context, my 2 high school students get A's and B's at semester time, which is when the grades really matter. They are both in a math class together, and there was an assignment the first week of the quarter that both of them did not understand. I sat beside them and helped them through the 40 problem activity that was due Friday, April 5th. This assignment confused a lot of other kids. I'm sure over the weekend, as the teacher put the grades in, she noticed that not many kids did great and planned to address it on Monday in class. However, grade checks were done Monday morning. There was never a chance for the teacher or the students to complete that learning process before grade checks. And many kids in that class had an F due to 1 assignment. Then this last week, we were stressing about my son having an F in Spanish. In the first 2 weeks of this quarter, he was in Spanish class 3 days out of 2 weeks because of sports and a dentist appointment. So he wants to work, he wants to get those grades up, but it's hard when you're gone until on the regular 8 p.m. from practices and then hitting practice. All of that just plays into it. Our kids travel a lot. Sometimes they're not home until 1 a.m. So again, we stayed up late with him, got his work in, and his F went to an A. I am all for holding our students to high standards, but when these policies don't allow for that real learning process and our students' understanding to come out, it actually shows that this is a flawed system. These weekly grade checks need to go away. Often teachers have one big assignment that counts as 50% of a grade, and that will impact their eligibility. From a teacher's perspective, I say, well, make sure you do good on that, right? But from a parent's perspective, I see that they are getting home late. It's very tough on them. Some weeks are just difficult. And so these weekly grade checks are really, really stressful on them. This is not an attack on a particular teacher. In fact, I feel bad for them because these weekly grade checks make it really hard for them to help their students learn the content because everyone is hounding them about those weekly grade checks. And it's not really about whether or not the kids know the content. It's about, do they have more than an F, right? Or better than an F. So I see it all the time where these one assignment impacts them. It's not just the first 2 weeks. It happens throughout a quarter. These grades aren't because these kids are lazy. It isn't because the teachers are bad. It's because the learning process takes time, and we need our policies to allow for that to take place for our student athletes before we punish them, and we need to give them more time to make up their work. Like I said, even if they get a day or 2 for that, If they're gone and only there for 2 days, it's hard to make up everything that they are missing. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Okay, Jen Runia, you're next.
Thank you. Sorry there, guys. I'm going to speak very fast as well. I'm a parent and I'm here to advocate for change to our current academic athletic policy, extracurricular and co-curricular policy number 3380. My name is Jen Runia. I would like to ask our board members to envision an ooey gooey delicious grilled cheese sandwich. I consider you to be the top crust. You represent my employer, my livelihood. I consider myself to be the cheesy filling and my children who are your students and my heart to be the bottom crust. When we all come together just right, we are a Michelin star masterpiece. But have any of you ever burnt your mouth on molten cheese or choked down a piece of burnt toast? Honestly, I'm sure we all have. Last week was a recipe for disaster and our sandwich fell apart. I, the cheesy filling, reached my boiling point, and my son Jake, the bottom crust, literally crumbled in defeat. Hence, I am here asking you, the top crust, you guys, what went wrong? Now, they say that the more you stir the pot, the more it will stink. Well, bear with me because I am here to stir. 4 days into fourth quarter, my son Jake had 4 A pluses, 2 P's for passing, and 1 big fat F. There's a saying our teachers use, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. The lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Jake owned his F on his assignment and fixed his mistake. Really, the same day he was given the grade. He's never been ineligible. He didn't even understand his assignment and he failed it. But he was really in a pickle when he was told he was benched for 8 baseball games. 8 baseball games is a minimum of 16 hours of my son's life. Now, if I were a lawyer, we wouldn't be talking grilled cheese. We'd be talking shrimp Belvedere or Wagyu beef. So pretend for a second that that is in fact the case. I want to ask everyone, what do 16-year-olds do when they have free time on their hands? If you are supervised and held accountable like my son Jake, you do your homework. You work that baseball concession stand. You pick up the dog poop. Sure, you can play a little Madden, half an hour, go do the dishes, stop fighting with your sister, go shoot some hoops, and get to bed early. But what do unsupervised 16-year-olds do? Imaginary Exhibit A, graffiti and tagging in public places. Imaginary Exhibit B, lewd and crude and rude blaring music and language at the city park. Imaginary Exhibit C, can you help identify the suspicious subject on this Ring doorbell camera? These exhibits are important to consider, as 50% of the members of our local gang were smiling and suited up to play ball in Jake's team pictures from last year, the year prior, and the year prior. I'm here to ask you, what has went wrong with our recipe? So many kids have no voice. No voice, no choice, no change. I am proud to be the voice of my son, Jake. I am thankful to Dr. Kaczynski, Mr. Jacobson, and Dr. Garrett for having open and honest communication with me as a parent and with Jake as a student. Thank you for putting a hold on ineligibility midweek last week as this policy is reviewed. And I am eternally grateful to Coach Matthew Carlock, Coach Rocky Barlow, Scotty Tonwold, and Christina for stepping up to the plate, going to bat for all student athletes. My name is Jen Runia. I'm a parent and proud employee of JSD 171. But in conclusion, when it comes to an ooey gooey cheese sandwich, Mama knows best. Change the policy 3380. I know together we can rewrite the recipe for success.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for that, Jen.
I
I feel kind of crusty now. Just kidding.
I'm just glad we had pizza tonight.
Where do you work? Where do you work? I have some tomato jam I'm gonna bring you. Awesome, grilled cheese sandwich.
Well, that was refreshing. Who's next?
Good luck following that one. Yeah.
Okay, Matthew Carlock.
Well, for one thing, you heard our debate and our possible action, our thoughts. Are we on track?
Yeah, and we are, and that was nice because I'm not as official as you guys and all set up and ready, but there was some good talk that answered kind of some of my questions and concerns. But I am here as a concerned coach, not for the kids that are failing, but the kids that are doing right and that are passing. I've seen this policy negatively affect those kids more than it has the kids with the Fs. They're stressed out. I've seen it day in and day out, practice with these kids every day throughout the weekend, and they're worried about if they get to play the following week. And it's not on them, and they're working hard. So that's my huge concern. Mrs. Earps, to address what you said with the coaches earlier, there's not a, before the season starts that we say school's first. After every practice, we talk about grades, schoolwork, put the computers, the Nintendos down, get it done. It's a brotherhood on our team and support your brother. But right now it's negatively impacting the students that have had straight A's and B's. And my big concern is the zero placeholder that we were talking about. We're automatically telling our students, you're failing. But why? Why not put 100 in there? Why even put anything in there? So that's a huge concern of mine. And then the policy stated that the student in Skyward must show the principal or the AD that, you know, going back to the other policy, we're not trying to create more work for our principal or our athletic director or our teacher. If that kid knows, the student athlete knows he's failing that week, why can't he show in Skyward to the coach and put some of that on the coach to say, hey, coach, I am up today. Maybe it wasn't in the morning, but here it is. We don't have to have the AD and the principal continue pulling grades.
Right.
Puts a little bit of that on the kid to say, if we go back to the other policy, to put some of that verbiage in, that we don't have to. I can't tell you how many times I've called Mr. Jacobson at 6 in the evening or 6 in the morning, and he's always helping, but it does put a lot of stress on you guys. So if that can be something worded in there, discussed as well, that if the student is failing on that, whatever policy we go back to, that they can show the coach that and put some of that on the coach and say, okay, you're good to go. So
I kind of have a general question.
Yes.
About that. So when you have your parent meetings prior to the start of the athletic season, do you guys go over grades, what the expectation is from the coaches for the students' grades during?
I know in high school basketball we did. I wasn't there for baseball one. I was still in basketball. But yes, at the parent meeting, and again, you're always getting the same few parents that really show up to those meetings.
Right, because I just think
it is hard.
Yeah, and the parents need to keep track of it too.
Correct.
You know,
but we do as
emphasize
coaches emphasize that school comes first, and we do put that as a priority. And the other thing is they get an excused absence from practice if they're doing schoolwork. Even if they're at a C or D, but they're struggling, there's no penalty to them if they're saying, Coach, I'm staying after school. I'm doing
like the old study table
Correct.
kind of concepts.
If they're doing that, then they're technically at practice for us, and that's our policy.
Okay. Is that unspoken policy?
It is, yeah. That's mine and Rocky Barlow's basketball policy, and we in the Scotty Tonavold as well. If the kids are doing schoolwork, it's an excused absence.
Okay, time's up. Did you get through everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.
And
you,
just
guys.
a reminder
Matt.
to the board, this is their time to speak,
Yeah.
not ours. So,
Well, I just had a question.
We'll give
Sorry.
us 3 minutes, then we can ask questions.
Taskmaster at work.
all right.
I'm old. I got to ask that stuff right on the top of my head or go somewhere else. So
Okay, next, Justin Goss.
No comment.
No comment, okay. What about Russell Norland?
Evidently got a few.
I'm not here about the sport policy, but I'd like to talk to you about that if I could at some point, maybe next time. So on behalf of the Peck Elementary School parents and community members, the general tone of the March meeting was that significant improvements must be made to get the building up to code, to keep it open and operational for our children and students. We would like to know what the plan is for making these improvements. Is it an if question? Based on the inspection report, the building is not up to code if improvements are not made. Does this possibly make the school a safety issue or have to be closed due to being condemned? The statement was made more than once by board members at the March meeting that no decisions will be made tonight, but what decisions are we talking about? Is the school district considering closing Peck Elementary as opposed to making the needed improvements? That was not made clear at the March meeting, but the community and parents feel like this is being considered but not communicated. The Peck classroom physical environment is unique and effective. There are very few schools that have an atmosphere that allows students to connect on the level that Peck Elementary offers. The intimate setting allows students to interact with other students outside of their grade level that is unmatched at larger schools. In addition to the regular curriculum, students are learning patience, understanding, compassion, and leadership. They are creating a strong bond and exceptional learning experience where students are helping other students. One-on-one with teachers is high importance and implemented on a daily basis. Peck Elementary is unique and special. It is not something that the students and parents community want to see disappear or close. If closing the school is being considered, we expect the school district and board members to be clear about their intentions and give the Peck community the opportunity to weigh on the decision. Thus far, as a community, we're asking what are the district intentions, and we want answers. It is evident that the building maintenance has been neglected for decades. We're at a point now where significant improvements must be made. Frankly, the district's neglect has put us in this situation. And if the district is considering closing the school as opposed to making the situation right, we find that unacceptable. When it comes to the needed improvements, they have been in decline for several years. Why is it all of a sudden an urgent issue that requires action now or possible closure? Why have we made it to this point without the district maintaining the building appropriately? The facility report conducted by the state said the district has 30 days to respond to how the issue will be remedied. When asked recently, the state office could not find any communication between the school district and the state office for the last 5 years on this matter. Enrollment at Peck is at the highest it's been in years. Of the 37 students currently enrolled and attending Peck Elementary, only 5 come from Orofino. 2 of them are my kids. We feel the district need to make the situation right and provide the needed improvements and keep our school open. The only option we should be discussing is when and if not the improvements will be made at Peck. Regards, parents and community members of Peck.
Thank you very much.
Am I out of time?
Yeah,
Perfect
you are.
timing.
But and then we had one other email from a concerned patrons from the Peck area as well. And they're not here tonight and they didn't ask to speak, but they did share an email with the superintendent and the board.
Yep.
And they got that, just
We've got
to
that.
recognize that they got that and read that. Okay, did I miss anybody? Okay.
All right.
You know, we can't answer your question.
Even we really want to.
There's more of a general statement saying, hey, we'd like something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could talk to you more about it, but I ran out of time. If you want to give me 3 more minutes, I'll talk to you about the school policy.
Oh, maybe another issue, I don't know.
And it would be more of a process.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, we need a motion to, at this time, go into executive session.
I'll move we go to executive session.
Pursuant.
In accordance pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206, 1A and B.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're now
Roll call.
roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez.
Trustee Kepke.
Yes.
Trustee Daniels.
Yes.
Trustee Craig.
Yes.
Trustee St. Germain.
Yes.
And Trustee Ertz.
Yeah. All right. What are we gonna do?
Lock it or take it. I locked mine, but.
Is Brian
All right, I'm here now. Can you hear me now? I can't hear you.
Oh, and Russell's Vixen.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear
Okay.
me? Okay, I'm gonna start over for Brian's edification.
We're down on the extracurricular eligibility policy, Brian.
Copy.
Okay, so I move that we change it, Brian, to read, students shall meet any applicable IHSAA requirements for eligibility. Students grades 6 through 12 must be passing all classes, in parentheses, no failing grades. Grades checks will be a minimum of every 2 weeks. Students will become eligible only after evidence of passing all classes is presented to the athletic director or principal. Eligibility may be granted by the school administrator and/or athletic director for extraordinary circumstances. All such circumstances must be reviewed by the administrator prior to the day of the athletic event.
I think you did great.
Discussion. I want discussion.
Okay.
Okay. So we need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Can we have discussion?
Okay. Now we can have discussion.
Okay. So what we heard.
Discussion, Brian.
What we
Wait,
did it.
so is this our 2000? Is this the 2020 version?
We're
It's a
combining.
combination.
Right, of the
Combination.
2019 and 2020, correct?
That is correct. So one of our public comments mentioned that why couldn't we present Skyward, the student, present Skyward information to coach? And I caught that and it made sense to me, but I didn't know about the administrative authority of a coach to grant that access to the activity. Does it matter? Do we want to stick the word coach in here?
So if Skyroar shows a D instead of an F, is a coach
It
good
says
to let the team
after,
back
it says after evidence of passing all classes is presented to the athletic director and or principal, do we want to add coach in there?
My opinion is.
I don't see why a coach couldn't be a part of that. It's no different than a parent being a part of that.
What I would advocate is that the responsibility needs to fall on the administrator.
That's what I
to make sure
wondered.
that it happens. You could have a designee. A coach absolutely can help with the process, but my opinion is that it needs to stay with the administrator to make the decision.
Okay, so then I would amend the motion sentence that so student would become eligible only after evidence of passing all classes is presented to the athletic director and or principal or their designee.
Yes, that would work.
I like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, something
And then
I
it-
should do is that,
Right here.
the technology savvy students that we have, that some of that information is pretty easy to manipulate. And so the validation piece is important to have at the admin level so the coach has some support.
Right.
Too, so
Sorry, I
that-
couldn't. It's right
Well, and I
on.
like if you're gone or you're
see.
traveling or we don't have an AD, which we're about to lose, you guys could delegate somebody and it might be the coach.
And this
Coach is checking it.
Okay, now the next piece that I want to ask about whether we need or not is that, so grade checks, blah, 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 presented. Eligibility may be granted by the school administrator and or athletic director for extraordinary circumstances. Is that an and or an and or?
And with the athletic director and administrator,
Mhm.
that and or like anybody
And or?
who's
Okay,
available.
so and or.
Yep.
And then also then, do we need the sentence, all such circumstances must be reviewed by the administration prior to the day of the athletic event? I think that's counterproductive to the 2-week period.
Agreed. Right?
I guess I'm.
Or does it allow them, if they hadn't been eligible previous, the day prior to the event, then
I think that was the discussion back
Oh,
then
then it gives
was,
them
the-
that little bit of a
so that
window.
one day, like it wasn't going to happen on the day of the event. It had to be reviewed prior. I think that was where the discussion was, if I recall
That's what
correctly.
it says.
Yeah.
All such circumstances must be reviewed by administration prior to the day of the athletic
Correct.
event.
So they're not 5 minutes before the bus leaves and going.
Saying
"Hey,
And
it's,
that's-
it's exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or extraordinary, extraordinary. Yeah.
circumstances that they're
That's just the,
reviewing.
yeah, if
Yes.
it's exclusionary to just the extraordinary.
Yes.
So it's like, we're saying if like.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
said, I was gone for a week because of bereavement.
Yeah,
or
right.
something, then we could say, yeah, we're gonna give you some time.
Yeah.
To get your grades.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So
And we're good with prior to the day of the event.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to then read that whole thing?
Yep.
How about if she reads it back to you?
Yeah, right on.
Okay. Somebody needs to read.
Okay, the original first motion was by trustee St. Germain's to edit the extracurricular eligibility policy 3380 to say students shall meet any applicable IHSAA requirements for eligibility. Students grades 6 through 12 must be passing all classes, no failing grades. Grade checks will be a minimum of every 2 weeks. Students will become eligible only after evidence of passing all classes is presented to the athletic director/principal. Eligibility may be granted by the school administrator and athletic director for extraordinary circumstances. All such circumstances must be reviewed by the administrator prior to the day of the athletic event. Was seconded by trustee Daniels. Discussion took place. It was amended to read athletic director, principal, or designee.
And eligibility may be granted by the school administrator and or athletic director for extraordinary
Yes.
circumstances.
Okay,
The and or.
And or it's and.
right here, and/or.
Yeah. Right there.
All right.
I think we
Do
heard
need
you.
a second for that.
If we got the
Yeah, we
change.
have a second. We had discussion.
We had a
She
second, we
amended
had
it.
discussion?
Oh.
Oh, we amended it?
Yep.
Okay, so we can get a second to the amendment?
I'll second.
Any more discussion?
Brian?
We cool?
No,
Brian, you good?
I'm good.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay. All right, next, new hires and new hires and separations. Can I get a motion?
Oh, I'm so glad I got to see Michelle the other day.
Oh, man,
Want
yeah.
to move?
I missed that one.
I'll move we approve the new hires and separation list presented April 2024.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm glad I got to see Michelle George the other day.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, board input for future agenda items. The next regular meeting will be May 20th at IDYCA, at which time we will also, now, time-wise on that, do we want to meet at, huh?
What's our regular, what's the issue topic?
That's what I'm saying. We may have to do the early graduation requests rather than a work session.
Which we didn't have.
Time-wise?
session.
We don't have
I don't think we had one
We would have to
scheduled.
skip one, so let's
Okay,
just do early
so we'll do it 5 o'clock. Does that work, Jim? Okay.
If we need to make an adjustment, how do I handle that? Is there a way to handle that?
You just let them know.
How long do you need for that? Because our regular meeting is at 6:30, so you're looking at doing it prior. Is that what you guys are asking? Or start our meeting early, basically?
Yeah, we were hoping to meet quite a bit earlier.
Okay.
If possible.
Well,
Because
can.
That's a standard of what they've got to do as well. So we're gonna-
Right.
So what time do you want to do it?
I don't want to say that right off the top of my head. It's just, can I find out tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you, let
Push
me
guys
know.
all
and we'll-
Most of the meetings you can without making it bad for the kids, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
So it will be
Whatever.
earlier is what we know. Okay.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I guess I would ask that it not be before 4:30.
I think we talked about that before.
It's very
So,
tough.
yeah.
Kind of have a work issue.
My big issue is making sure that their feedback schedule for me is not changed for that. So I think the plan is it'll fit right in.
Okay, perfect. All right. All right, motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
We ain't gonna discuss it. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
What'd you
Meeting is
say?
now adjourned.
What'd you say?